The KIX initiative has a key goal, which is systems transformation. And therefore, it is key to think of what is the capacity of the hubs to promote policy change and the take-up of different programs. And I think for that, first of all, we have to try to understand, and we're trying to understand from the KIX LAC hub, how institutional change happens. As we know, the evidence policy link is not linear. It's not something easy to say, well, we have research, and therefore some policymaker will take that research and transform it into better policies. If you take all the literature on political science, institutional economics, sociology, we know that institutional changes are, of course, driven by the search for better solutions, but also cultural changes and power struggles. So the politics, not only the policy, the politics and the political processes are very important. In that sense, I think one challenge that the KIX hubs have is to better understand how that political and policy process occurs on how actually policy reform occurs. So in that sense, I think that's something, first of all, in terms of how we understand that. And just to say what we're seeing in the region is that we're seeing that, again, we're trying to move from a perspective in which is a program-based agenda, and therefore that requires a scaling up a program, into more of a basically systems transformation, which means basically understanding policy and trying to support that change, which is a bit different. And for that, maybe I would like to also ask what are your experiences. But in our experience, it's very important to have a very close relationship with ministries of education, especially the ministry itself, to have champions. At least we have had very good experiences when we are able to find our champions within the Ministry of Education. Usually it's a high-level authority within the ministry, and to make him or her very engaged with the work of the KIX, and therefore to be able to promote together some kind of policy reform.
Javier, so maybe I pick up on that, and I think we are in total agreement. The link between research and policy, it's a complicated link. And there is even research about this link, right? On how to make sure that research is linking more effectively to policy and practice. And as a society, all over the world, we need to learn more on how to make that link happen. Well, we have here an assumption that better research will inform better policies that will then get us to better results and better learning for our children. So this is the assumption that underlies all our work. We often talk about everything needs to go for uptake. We think KIX is not, sometimes there's research to inform research as well. So KIX is also promoting research for internal capacity and internal system reflection. Not everything that KIX is supporting will go for policy, but just the act that we are offering the ministry more alternatives for choice, that's already something that KIX is contributing in a significant way. We often talk about uptake as the end line. And I think KIX, all our hubs have been understanding that there is a need to go to the baseline, to the beginning of the process, and to make sure that since the first moments, we are addressing a need that is relevant to the country. So whenever we are trying to sell or to put to the consideration of the ministry a product that was developed through KIX, if we have been engaging with the ministry, with the national teams, already the buy-in is already there. So it's easier then for it to be organically, to have that uptake. So the issue of relevance, it's critical. And our hub's work, we are trying to surface those needs, those demands, to make sure that all our work is informed by that. And then we try our best, and would like to hear from you as well, how you are finding those champions. For sure, we need to find champions in all our hubs. And we have some of those champions. Sometimes they are not in the ministry, but sometimes they are people who have great connections, and they are committed to improve the education systems. And their great incentive is that they believe that a specific product, a specific research can bring us better results. So this is through our KIX experience, our KIX way. But we want to hear from your experience as well, Maïmouna and Yvonne, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
One, there is a lot of information that exists, very good research to share or that can be scaled up. But then I ask myself, so maybe the question here should be, why are they not being scaled up? And I'm hearing a lot of information coming from us that one of the things that maybe we need to focus on is ensuring that we engage the ministries from the onset of whatever program it is for it to be taken up. Because I can speak from a Kenyan perspective, I believe, or from African perspective. I believe I earn the authority by being virtue of being an African. In an African family, you don't come and tell me there's a problem in your house, and this is how we can solve that problem. You do not tell me that. It is my house. I should be able to give the solution to that problem. So it's the same thing. If these great researches are conducted without the government, they will not take it up. They view it as an outsider. It doesn't matter how good it is, they will not take it up. So I think ideally, what we should be focusing on is ensuring that for any good project or research that we're carrying out, we need to involve the government, the ministry, from the onset of that. Right from inception. When we have that thought, we need to involve them and then walk the journey with them. Because in that case, there'll be some ownership. If we take a very good report to the ministry and tell them this is what the research that we conducted and this is the finding and this can really work, let us just scale it up. The first thing they look at is, so who conducted that research? Does that person have authority? Who is he or she? So I think one of the things that we need to even emphasize, even as we go forward, is to make sure that we bring on board, first of all, reputable researchers, because in every country there are reputable researchers. So first of all is to bring on board the reputable researchers that the government actually acknowledge, and then bring the expertise from the ministry themselves. Yeah, if I come to you with a report that you are maybe director of EMIS or director of education has actually signed as having participated, I mean, you cannot refute it. Because your person was there. They already have the information. So I'm looking at it like that. Like if we are to facilitate policy uptake, then we need to really ensure that we include the relevant government officials in this project or in research.
Au niveau de Afrique 21, nous avons pris le soin de responsabiliser donc nos équipes de coordination nationale. Responsabiliser, c'est aussi pour qu'ils puissent s'engager davantage, s'approprier aussi le KIX et comprendre leur rôle finalement qu'ils jouent dans la réussite et l'atteinte des objectifs du programme. Ils ont tout de suite compris les enjeux. D'autant plus que je disais aussi que la culture du partage et des connaissances était quasiment inexistante dans la plupart de nos ministères. Donc, c'était vraiment une approche qui venait à point nommé. Et c'est comme si, finalement, c'était le morceau du puzzle qui manquait, voilà, pour faire le puzzle dans son intégralité. Au-delà de ça, nous essayons de capitaliser aussi toute la recherche, mais aussi d'aller vers la valorisation des jeunes chercheurs francophones qui travaillent sur les priorités régionales, bien entendu, et ces priorités, les résultats de ces recherches doivent également être disséminés au sein de nos différents ministères de l'éducation.
I think something that is very important that has worked for us is how to work always as well as a triad between the government, the KIX hub, but also with some kind of NGO or especially universities that are very important in that country or locality. Because that will offer some kind of buffer for these changes. And it will create a commitment of the Ministry of Education with a third party, not only the KIX, but a third party, which is also from the same country.
Yes.
And therefore, the commitment usually is more institutional and more long-lasting. So that's another, I think, condition that it would be important to think about in order for policy take-up. And a third one, I think, which is very important, is the one that you were talking about, is the issue of the legitimacy of who does the research.
Yes.
And for that purpose, we have gone maybe a different route in that sense, or a complementary route, which is saying, we're not going to take my paper or your paper, let's say, regarding a reform or a policy advice. What we're going to do is try to really synthesize all the quality research that is available. And that we have done. For example, for pedagogical practices, we have built upon a work that has been done by the Education Endowment Foundation from the UK, in which SUMA actually works together with the EF in contextualizing that platform, which has more than 300 meta-analyses and more than 10,000 studies within it, to have the effect size, that is the impact, the measured impact of, for example, again, pedagogical practices, so that we are not, for example, in the case of policies of recovery, we're not telling teachers to do more, we're telling them to do better in the sense of where to channel their pedagogical efforts. And therefore, the question is that who did that research? Because now everybody did that research in terms of a quality threshold to be met, but beyond that, then there's a kind of a synthesis of evidence.
Au-delà de ça, toute la partie qui concerne le renforcement de capacité, toutes les tables rondes que nous organisons au niveau de KIX Afrique 21, ce sont bien entendu des forums de discussion qui génèrent aussi des données et qui vont être reversées encore une fois dans ces politiques publiques d'éducation. Donc c'est pour dire que KIX génère effectivement des données probantes et des données qui vont éclairer nos ministères de l'éducation. Et je pense que déjà, le travail est en train de se faire, mais nos ministres de l'éducation ont pris conscience justement de l'importance de ce programme parce que finalement, dans les pays où nous allons pour le lancement du KIX, ils sont là, ils participent, ils viennent faire l'ouverture des ateliers et ça, c'est pas anodin. Et ils nous font part vraiment de cette nécessité d'avoir ce programme KIX.
Maïmouna, let me add here a quick point. On the policy uptake and our role as hubs, we need to recognize that there are things out of our sphere of control. And I think that we are trying to influence, we're trying to contribute. But we trust, and I think I speak here for all the hubs, that once we offer those alternatives, those additional options to governments, they will know the best decision, the best option for their future. So it's about leveling here the level of options, bringing here a perspective of knowledge equity. So we always talk about equity, right? In all aspects of education. KIX is a way for us to promote equity in knowledge as well, where we are bringing different sides of the perspectives of knowledge, not only from the global north, but also from the global south, and making it available so that the government can make those best decisions. One thing that I think we need to be also clear is that we don't only do research, that we are trying to find here the learning that countries can have from each other in terms of implementing the best way their own reforms. We know that GP is doing a lot of work at country level, and KIX here has a complementary role in terms of reflecting the way we are implementing and how we can, by exchange with each other, exchanging across hubs, but also inter-hubs, we can exchange to do things better, and we can present these reflections for better policy and better practice. We want to go beyond strengthening of education systems, but trying to move to a critical mass for sustained change. We know that in every reform, we need people that are supporting a reform. We need people that are implementing reform, but we also need people who are designing that reform. So in our hub, we want to have leaders in terms of reform implementation that they can set the pace and lead that reform. And KIX will provide opportunities to have those emergent leaders in terms of designing from the first sketch a reform that hopefully will have an uptake.
I was going to ask you how you're going to identify these leaders, and are you drawing them from the government wing, or is it researchers or universities? Yeah, because I think that will be very important.
Yes.
I think we started by saying it does not matter how good the evidence is. Sometimes,
Sure.
Yeah, sometimes it does not matter. The evidence might be everything that you can imagine, and it will do everything that you can imagine, but then they do not take it up simply because of maybe they were not involved in the first place.
Qui vient à point nommé encore une fois, et certains des ministères nous confient d'ailleurs qu'ils avaient l'idée de vraiment partager les expériences, mais ils ne savaient pas par où commencer, quel mécanisme utiliser. Et ça, c'est le cas du Sénégal, par exemple. Et au Sénégal, le ministère de l'Éducation, au-delà de l'équipe de coordination nationale, par exemple, a mis en place une autre équipe de soutien à l'équipe de coordination nationale. C'est-à-dire qu'ils se sont réorganisés en interne pour le KIX. Ils ont identifié des personnes, des fonctionnaires du ministère de l'Éducation pour travailler sur des problématiques de l'innovation et du partage des connaissances. Et là, clairement, on est en train de s'acheminer vers une institutionnalisation. Et quand je prends encore une fois l'exemple du Togo, le Togo a produit une feuille de route pour la mise en œuvre du KIX, mais une feuille de route qui allait au-delà de la fin du programme. Là, on vise la deuxième phase du KIX 2.0, mais ce travail a été déjà fait donc par le Togo qui était dans la perspective de pérenniser cette approche. Et ça, c'est formidable.
That's all for this discussion. I'm Javier González, and I look forward to talking with you all again. Thanks to IDRC for organizing.